All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the meeting of the Buckhannon City Council to order. 7 o'clock. Always good to see a full room for the business of the city of Buckhannon. It's a pleasure to have all of you here tonight. What I'll do is start off with our normal tradition, and that would be a moment of silent prayer and meditation, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we head on to the agenda, as we normally do, I will ask for our visiting students from West Virginia Wesleyan College to please stand up and give us your name, where you're from, and what your college major is, if you don't mind, please. And we'll just start off in the middle and head our way around.
I'm Tyler Piketell. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia, in accounting.
Brayton Tall, Charlotte, North Carolina, business management.
Chad Penson, Cincinnati, Ohio, business administration.
Natalie Schaffner, Baltimore, Maryland, business administration.
Hannah Tonelli, Baltimore, Maryland, and business marketing.
Keely Gallahan, English writing, and I'm from Charlestown, West Virginia.
Travis Renner, I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia, and I'm sports business.
Sean Cliff, Syracuse, New York, and sports business.
Nathan Boudet, I'm from France, and I'm a sport business major.
Andrew Capelli, I'm from St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, and a sports business major.
I'm Krista Wagner from Oklahoma City, and I'm business marketing.
Well, we want to thank you and for being here. I know that it's a requirement of your class that TV's there for a reason, so that they could actually check you off on the roll call that you did attend. And it's always great to see an international student. We usually get Asian, and I think it's the first time I've seen someone from France here attending, so that's awesome. That's good to know as well.
Probably be French students.
Don't try it. It's a very pretty language, Ronnie. You just killed it. What I will do is go to our sign-up sheet next, and I'm noticing that too they're already going to be speaking on the agenda. So I do have Mr. Jerry Kimball, who would like to have a moment of our time to discuss something on the car club. So Jerry, I would give you the floor, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jerry Kimball with the West Virginia Classic Wheels Car Club. The reason I came tonight is I wanted to find out if anything had been done about the speakers that are going to be put on Main Street. Of course, I do not have any expertise in that, but our club has donated some money towards this, and well, I mean, it hasn't been donated as of this time, but it is appropriated. And I didn't know whether the City Public Works had got started on it, had made any plans or anything, but I see Mr. Arnold is not here tonight, so that's...
Mr. Kimball's referring to a topic that's been discussed for a couple of years now, and that's Bluetooth speaker system down on Main Street that would be controlled on each corner. Right now where we have tree planters, that's where we'd like to facilitate the placement of the speakers and also put electrical outlets for anybody else that may be a band that's there on the corner. Unfortunately at this point, and I'll defer though to my two consolidated board members that sit on council and say if they would like to comment on that first. That would be Mary and Mr. Thomas, or I'm sorry, Pam and Mr. Thomas. Do you recall those discussions? Do you want to reiterate or elaborate?
Actually, I do not recall that discussion. I just came on the consolidated this year, so unless it was brought on before, I did not know about that. But our next meeting, which will be
the end of the fourth Thursday in February.
Yeah. We can put it on our agenda. Would you like to come and speak about it again?
I would come speak to everybody, but, I mean, like I say, I don't have any expertise in this. The only thing is I'm a member of the car club, a representative of the car club.
Why don't you call and get on our agenda?
Well, I'll go ahead and say that I've already placed him on the agenda for that meeting.
Okay.
But what I was wondering if Mr. Thomas may also want to, he's heard this discussion before, if that is still something that he recalls?
I've heard it, it's never been presented as a formal plan to the board. That's my recollection.
Correct.
But that's where you need to start, Jerry. And I would first think it would be advantageous to meet with Jerry Arnold first and at least have a preliminary discussion with him, and then he can present it to the board also when you come in the fourth day.
I totally agree with you. I hate it that Jerry's not here tonight.
Yeah.
I'll elaborate a little bit further then for you. Right now, the issue is with the placement of the speakers and the new outlets. There is a concern about the plants, and I know I'm reiterating too, but this is for the public now. There's an issue with the tree size that are in these planters now that they have overgrown the planters. Now, these planters are concreted in or placed in by brick and mortar. If they outgrow them, they will totally destroy the planters that we have in there. So the plan is right now with our city's horticulturalist is to pull out those trees. When we pull out the trees in the soil, that's when we have the opportunity to place in the electrical outlets and the Bluetooth speakers, which will be facing out. Until we can hear, or when is an opportune time for such taking out of those trees, and that's up to his time schedule and the season, that would be the time we will place them. I did put you on the consolidated so that we can get it on the radar, at least for the consolidated board to take a look at and put it into the plans with the horticulturalist.
Okay.
We certainly do want to, and just for citizens' sake, that brings up another issue as far as the Bluetooth downtown. If you have a Bluetooth system, then you have to have a control system. You have to have a box somewhere that's going to be able to play this music and it's going to be able to put it where you want.
Correct.
Festival Fridays would love to have it down at Jawbone Park so they can put it out to the city on Main Street. It's been discussed, CBB have it since they're right down in the middle of downtown, that they'd be able to do it as well. Then there's been discussion down here so that we can get it out. How do you get the music from Jawbone Park up here? So it gets a little more complicated and a lot more expensive as far as being able to do that. $1,000 goes a long way for the speakers and perhaps for the wiring. Another $1,000 from the city would go to making sure that it is in the right place. But the system by which to make that all happen is about $5,000. So we've got to figure out how that's going to work. But it's a great idea. We want to do it. It's just a matter of facilitating it through Consolidated. And other organizations are going to utilize it. I think they should participate as well.
It would be advantageous for the Strawberry Festival. Also, at Christmas time, to play music.
Sure.
Christmas music.
Yeah, absolutely.
The people that would like to hear it. So.
Let's get moving on it. I'm glad you brought it up. We'll get it on a Consolidated's.
May I comment?
Sure.
I seem to recollect that the Strawberry Festival put in a budget request last year for $5,000 from the city, and it was for a speaker system. And I believe that we informed them that if they took care of the speaker system and got it going, we would consider their $5,000. But I don't think anybody said anything about it. Anybody here from the Strawberry Board that remembers that?
I am on the board.
Does anybody else on council remember them submitting something? Are we talking about that? Michael?
I wasn't on the Strawberry Board at the time. I don't recall speaker discussions with the Strawberry.
Well, I don't think I dreamed it, but...
I recall them coming here asking for funding, but I don't think there was anything in particular.
Yeah, they did say something about, we talked about it, like a wheel and deal thing, maybe helping out with speakers or something if they got the most expensive part. But I don't know if it was last year. I think it's been a couple of years, Ron.
It may have been.
It's before my time on here.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple of years. Now, the thing that they're talking about for this, I know that it was something that Consolidated talked about with doing this with the Classic Car Club. I know, and I remember that when I was on there a year ago. but, they can only do so much too for Consolidated Public Works.
I believe Jerry was talking to IB too.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll get it on there, and I'll let you know if you want to be there for that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, I don't see anybody else signed up. Something that is not on your agenda that I am going to do with an exception to the rule in most cases, and I was kind of waiting for Mrs. Lori Dean to be here, but I have a proclamation that I am going to be giving for a superhero. A superhero that does not necessarily live in our city, but is a superhero in Clarksburg. But he has garnered a lot of support here in the city of Buckhannon. His name is Jack Rollins. He's a 5-year-old who has neuroblastoma cancer. He was diagnosed 2 years ago. He is now seeking treatment. But the reason why I'm doing this exception is because this means a lot to me. Because if you did not know Colton Dean, you knew this young man was very energetic, came with a lot of great ideas. And you would never have known that this young man was battling any type of situation or health issue at all. And that is what I think our youngsters can teach us, particularly me at my age. That you can overcome and you can persevere and there is no end in sight when you're that age. And I look at the college students and I think, I remember too, being your age, being invincible. There's nothing you couldn't do. And at 5 years old, you can get an idea or grasp if you can remember what that was. So, unfortunately, Mrs. Dean, who was the son of Colton Dean, could not be with us. She was going to try to be here, but she can't. But what I am going to do is go ahead and read this. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I can read it. I'm going to ask a volunteer to read it for me that will not break down. But I will send this to his family. He is right now in Michigan. Doing his final treatments, hopefully. As far as the checkup was, let me just tell you this real quick. This week, Jack is recovered and moving ahead with treatment. He was discharged on Sunday evening for allowing him to return to a hotel where he could have a small break from the hospital, giving himself, mommy and daddy, some quiet time together. He was back to the hospital early the next morning to begin his next round of chemotherapy. This is one type and dose, was just for a day and given intravenously. One of the side effects causes great discomfort to him, and if he drinks or eats anything colder than room temperature, and then it goes on to tell a little bit about the different situations as far as the medication. But he loves to sit and play with his Legos and laughs in delight if he is given a new set to build. This beautiful child spirit is inspiring and reminds us every moment of how very blessed we are. Your kind words, pictures, loving thoughts, cards, and amazing acts of kindness have left us overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude. We are so very grateful for the abundance of love you've given our Jack and that the hope you have placed in our hearts. We did the same thing with Mr. Colton Dean. I want to do the same thing for his family. And Mary, if you would, please do me the honors of reading the Superhero Jack Rollins Day Proclamation.
Mayor, I'm going to stand up, please.
As you wish.
Thank you. Whew. Superhero Jack Rollins Day. Whereas Friday, February the 5th, 2016 marks the 5th birthday of the day in which Jack Rollins was born unto Brooke and Ryan Rollins of Clarksburg, West Virginia. Young Mr. Rollins was diagnosed with stage 4 high-risk neuroblastoma cancer on December 28, 2013. Whereas on the occasion of Jack's 5th birthday, and on behalf of the citizens, families, and friends that support and appreciate the strength of prayer and positive thoughts, we as the citizens of Buckhannon offer our prayers and strength to this fine young man battling such a terrible disease. There are many citizens of Buckhannon already and continue to pray for the recovery of Jack Rollins. Whereas the citizens recall our very own Mr. Colton Dean and the battle and awareness he brought to our community through education and sheer perseverance. Mr. Dean bound our community in prayers and awareness of this disease, as well as the community endearment in our hearts and our minds. It is in Mr. Dean's memory and honor that we recognize young Mr. Rollins' fight and desire to overcome such difficult obstacles that may be facing him and his family. Whereas on February the 5th, 2016, Mr. Rollins' birthday, I, Mayor Rick Edwards, invite the citizens of Buckhannon to participate in offering up prayers and support in observance. Now therefore, I, Rick Edwards, the Mayor of the City of Buckhannon, declare February the 5th, 2016 as Superhero Jack Rollins Day, and call upon citizens of Buckhannon to lead in continued support for the upcoming year, and testimony whereof I and the Buckhannon City Council hereto our hand in cause be affixed the official seal of office proclaimed at the City of Buckhannon, County of Upshur, West Virginia, on the 4th day of February 2016.
Very much.
Thank you. I can think of a better and fitting way. I will send this off to Mr. Rollins. Mr. Rollins' family will get a copy of that, and we hope that it raises his spirits. If you will take a look on his Facebook page, it's Jack Rollins Journey. They keep you updated on all of it, and this young man will take your heart away, I guarantee, as he did mine and as he's done many of our citizens. If you do want to, he is now at the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got an email today, council asking me to do such, and I did such. I wrote it. I certainly appreciate what Mr. Dean did. I'm sorry Mrs. Dean couldn't be with us, but before I mentioned Colton's name, I asked her for permission. And she said that that is nothing more than Colton would have wanted, was for that kind of recognition. So that's why we did it. All right, moving on then. Yes, can you, send it down and pass, whatever, sign it. Yeah. All right, recognized guests. We do not have representative from County Roads Transit with us tonight. They will be presenting next week, but we do have the representatives of the Mid-Ohio Valley Regional Council. That would be Mr. Michael Libesay and Mr. Rodney Poling. Gentlemen, you do have the floor, sir.
Thank you. He didn't want to read that proclamation. I don't really want to be up here talking because that's pretty kind of got to me. I'm Rodney Poling, and I'm with the Mid-Ohio Valley Regional Council, and we have a program called the Senior Companion Program. It's in 26 counties in the state, across the state of West Virginia, and Upshur County just happens to be one of the counties that we serve. To become a senior companion, it's a lot like the foster grandparents program for some of you folks that are in school or just getting out, just going to college and have been in school. You might have seen foster grandparents that help in the school, and they help mentor kids that are having problems, with coping with different grades and different subjects. Well, we're kind of the sister program to them, and we're called the Senior Companion Program. And we go out and we help individuals stay in their home and maintain their independence for as long as possible. Of course, there are times that happens when we've done all we can do and people still have to move on to move in with loved ones or to go to a nursing home or some other kind of personal care home. Sometimes we still do follow those folks to the different places and remain their companions. We take 55 years or older folks from the community. We give them a chance to volunteer. We pay them a small stipend, which is tax-free. It's $2.65 an hour, and they serve up to 40 hours a week, from 15 to 40 hours a week in the community, and they go out and they help individuals. Mike's going to give you a little more detail on what we serve here in Upshur County. But it's a really good program. I've been in senior services now for about 35 years, so I'm looking forward to retiring. Not yet, but down the road here. And it really helps folks out in the community. It helps to put important dollars in folks' pockets that are on a fixed income that need that little bit of help, And it's tax-free. It doesn't affect any of their benefits like food stamps or help on their rent or HUD or those kind of things that they might receive. So I'm pretty proud of the program. We have 105 companions across the state of West Virginia. In, like I said, 26 different counties. And to give you kind of an idea, if you know where Berkeley County's at, we have 2 companions out there. We have 3 up in Brooke County, and we have 11 in McDowell County. So that shows you we cover quite a bit of the state. One of our larger programs is here in Upshur County. About a year and a half ago, we hired Mike Levacy on as our coordinator. He started out part-time, and we were able to give him full-time employment, which we're very happy to have him. He's a lot younger than I am, so he helps me to think out of the box. I sit here think, you know how you'll sit and you'll think, okay, I got to get up there and talk to those folks. So you're going through what you're going to say in your head, but what you say in your head is not what you say once you get up here. And I'm like, I looked at him and I'm like, well, there's women on that council. I said, how do you address a council that has women on it? I said, you say council persons? And he looked at me and said, Rod, you just say council men and women. And I'm like, oh, okay, I never thought of that. But he helped me think out of the box, and he still does come up with some good ideas, and he's very creative with the program. And I'm going to turn the next few minutes over to him to talk to you.
Hello, everyone. If no one knows me, I'm Michael Levacy. I'm pretty sure I know a lot of people in this room. Just going over the facts and figures of Upshur County. Out of the, like Rod said, out of the 26 counties in West Virginia, Upshur County is the biggest program we have in the state with 13 senior companions. If you turn to your report on the monthly hours by stations on page 2 where it has Upshur County, if you look at the other ones compared to Upshur, Upshur has 14,777 hours for the year 2015. The closest one that comes to that would be McDowell, and basically Upshur leads the way in all of them. So with that said, with the federal dollars that are coming back into Upshur County, if you take the total hours, multiply that by the hourly rate, $39,159 is coming back into Upshur County through the volunteer salaries. And also that doesn't even take into account the recognition that we give them. Just this past Christmas that we had, we usually do a recognition in the fall and in the spring.
Yeah.
So basically I would say that program-wise, Upshur County pretty much leads the way.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one's what? Webster County, and then we got 10,078 hours total. I can say from the statistics and demographics that I've seen that there is quite a high population of senior citizens that are stay at home, or what is it, live in place, that offer up a lot of services, which is why the senior center has such a great support group as it does. It's great work that you guys do. I know it, I've seen it. I'll open up to council. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Well, just with that being said, what I'd like to see is the program to continue to build. I have a lot of great ideas for it. So when it comes to the funding aspect of the program, I'm here tonight to request $2,500 for the current fiscal year. And then in the fiscal year 2017, $2,000 to continue building the program. And all that money will stay in Upshur County.
Okay. Just to make sure we're on the right track, you're asking for $2,500 for the remainder of the 2015 year, and that's all the way to June 30th, and then a $2,000 from 2016 July 1 through July 1 through June 30th. Yes. All right. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I'm very familiar with this, the Senior Companion Program. First of all, we have, I'm affiliated with the Veterans Organization, the American Legion, and several of those people, they may not be veterans, some of them probably are, but their spouses are taken care of and helped by the Senior Companion Program. And this program keeps the older generation at home as long as they can, and that's really critical, I think, and very important to keep them at home. A lot of our younger people have had to come back home. That's what I did. I didn't come back home. My husband come back home, and I come with him to take care of his parents. Okay, but it's harder for people to leave and come back because there's not jobs as much here, and he got lucky. I didn't. I did. I went to work at Westland. That's right. But anyways, this is an excellent program. It helps a lot of people. I know the work that they do, and I get to see some of these people coming into the American Legion building to visit with Michael, and I hear their joy, and they're talking about some of their patients and what's best to do for them. And I also was invited this year to the recognition dinner for those people, and I went, and I'm telling you, it was awesome. I never felt so much love in one place, but it was awesome. And so anyways, I just wanted to share my own personal thoughts and beliefs about this.
Thank you. I have one
program.
question. Mr. Livesey, has the city council ever appropriated any fundage to the Mid-Ohio Valley Regional Council?
Not that I know of.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pugh.
Michael, my mom is 97 years old. She's currently a resident of the third floor residency of St. Joseph's Hospital. Up until about 4 years ago, she had a senior companion. Her name was Virginia White, and Virginia was just had her 93rd birthday. And Virginia would say, "I just love staying with old people." You know, here she is, 93 years old, and she loves that. But not only does it benefit the person they're staying with, but the senior companion gets a lot out of it also, because sometimes they're in the position that they need this little $2.65 an hour.
Well, it makes them remain active in the community.
It does.
Makes them feel useful.
And I want to say that I support this senior companion program 100%. It's a great program, and I got a feeling that I'm going to need one before too long anyway. So.
You need one.
Michael, how does one become a senior companion, and is it like you keep a certain amount of people, or you just...
Basically, you have to be at least 55. In my contact information, I can give you all my contact information after the meeting.
I mean, are you needing them?
I'm sorry?
Are you needing senior companions, or you've
We can always take them on, we have clients for them. I actually have a waiting list that need a senior companion that I've had to put the clients on a waiting list because I don't have enough senior companions for the waiting list.
You have to go through a training program?
Yes.
And another thing, this is such a successful thing in Upshur County. What do you think contributes to that compared to some of the other counties that are just the same size?
I think it's basically the senior companions themselves that do the marketing of it, because I'll have a lot of them call me and they'll say, well, such and such works for your program. I would like to get involved. So that's how it's gradually built up over time.
Okay.
Word of mouth. They get if you got one person that's got a patient, someone else find out they're doing that, they'll call them and say, who's taking care of you and how can I get a hold of them? So a lot of that is word of mouth.
Very good. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Livesey?
I have a comment or two.
Yeah.
That's
what we're waiting for.
That surprise you, Mayor? First of all, Michael's one of my next door neighbors. So I've known Michael since he was a little kid. I think it's a good program, and I support the program. I would suggest to the rest of the council that there's a process that we have just developed this past year to ask for an application to be filled out for potential funding for different programs that are worthwhile out there, so that we can determine the, for lack of a better word, priorities as far as, we have limited resources. We have to allocate what we think is appropriate for our citizens within our city limits in the community. And I don't have any problem with funding it in the future, but I'm somewhat hesitant to do it for our current fiscal year, which is 2015-16, which ends the end of June. Because we've advertised it out there, marketed pretty, I think, successfully, that people need to get their application in. I don't know what Michael Doss, you could give the deadline. Next Friday. But I think that's appropriate to hold on the process that we developed. And I'm somewhat hesitant to say we should give the money this year when we didn't have a process that, there's a lot of organizations that probably have held off coming to us because we said we weren't going to do anything until we go through this formal process. So I would just throw that out there. Again, I think it's a great program. We have a very demographically, other than these young kids out here that are in college, we have a very aged community in the whole country, and especially in West Virginia. So organizations like this are very, very meaningful. And we have a successful senior center. Mountain Cap helps a lot of different organizations out there. So that's the only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Thank you, council. Michael, we do have a budget meeting discussed next week, next Tuesday, I believe it is. We may, have you been given the application form and all of that to submit? Let's get that submitted as soon as possible, by next Friday as well. We'll see what develops out of that meeting, whether or not, because what we appropriated for organizations has pretty much been spent through the year. Any appropriations that have not been used as far as certain projects, we're not sure of, and that's exactly what this meeting's about, because at the end of the year, we always end up doing, well, if we're lucky, we end up doing a budget revision that can stipulate certain things. So,
have you approached the county yet?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what did they say?
Their discretionary spending is very low at the current time, so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the city obviously recognizes the support and the work that your organization does. Not just in the city of Buckhannon, but in Upshur County. And that's something that this council has always been observant of, I think, is that we not just consider the citizens of the city of Buckhannon, but also those citizens surrounding, because many of our families live out in the county.
Exactly.
My dad lived out in the county, so what's good enough for me should be almost good enough for him. Let's take a look at that at next week's budget meeting, and then give us a call. Give my.
Would you all like me to come to the meeting?
You're more than welcome to. There's usually not any participation because we're trying to figure out departments and all of that. But if you will contact Mr. Dawson, we will keep you updated on what the progress is. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Livesey?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Yes, Mr. Poling.
I forgot to do this, and I am so sorry.
Go ahead.
But we do have a senior companion who's with us tonight.
Do we?
Jan Glessner is a senior companion of our program.
Again, thank you for the work that you do as well, and I see you have your companions with you, which I imagine doing almost as much work for the seniors or our elderly population as you do as well. So thank you so much for being here. Gentlemen, keep up the great work. We know I'll be there one day, so we're going to need it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Yes, sir. All right, moving on to our department and board reports. We have Mr. Doss, City Administrator. Mr. Doss, you have the floor, sir.
I'll see you later. Thank you. A brief report tonight. I wanted to report to you on our city finances. We are in February, so we're past the first half of the fiscal year. That in our rearview mirror. It did pass out to you where we stand financially ending January 1st, 2016. Year to date, our revenues are $2,213,016.81. You flip to the last page highlighted. Our total expenses for the year are $2,509,724.24, which is actually a negative difference, $296,707.43. Part of that negative, as we actually had going into January, we had three pay cycles in December. Salary and benefits, things like that play a huge impact in any budget, in any department. And obviously having 3 pays in a month will put a dent in that. We did issue a check for payment to West Virginia Paving for about $98,000. So that skews it a little bit. The good thing is we're on the back end of the fiscal year. Most of our spending is in our rearview mirror. Our major spending, I think all of our capital projects for the most part are finished, with the exception of finishing up the public safety complex training room.
We do have another round of paving scheduled for the spring, but we're going to utilize our coal tax fund to pay for that round of paving. We try to use the coal tax fund because we really don't budget much out of coal tax because of what's going on with the coal industry in West Virginia. So we kind of bank that over about a 3-year period, build it up a little bit, and then we go and we do some paving projects. So it's about time to tap into that. So that won't affect general fund. What the folks, the Aging Council were talking about, I do want to direct your attention back real quick to page 1 of this financial report, just to bring some attention. If you go all the way down to the middle bottom of the page under council, specifically if you go under council capital outlay, you go all the way over to the end where it says budget balance. It stands at $7,476.68. We did, as Mr. Thomas alluded to, we have created a form for fiscal year 2016. It is a little unusual to be getting funding requests. I've been doing this 5 years here to get funding requests at this point in the year. And typically we do use council capital outlay as what I guess the county commission does is kind of their discretionary fund, if you will. And I do know of a few things that are on the horizon as far as expenses that you need to be kind of cognizant about. I know, being a Strawberry Board member, I know the Strawberry Board is going to ask for money for the 75th. I do know there's probably going to be some participation in the fireworks again this year. And we do a payment in the beginning, and then we do a payment after the service is provided. If it's anything like last year, that'll be $5,000. That'll need to be paid if council makes that appropriation in this fiscal year. And then again, another $5,000 as we enter into July of next fiscal year. So, you just need to be mindful of the monies that you have without doing a complete budget revision and possibly increasing the budget. So I just want to point that out to you before we go further.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Any questions or comments before he goes further?
I got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Your preliminary projection for the end of the fiscal year is still be meeting your projections as far as the bottom line for the end of the year?
Yes. Our revenues are actually a little bit above where we would project them to be at this point in the fiscal year. And to be quite honest with you, our expenditures really, once this thing kind of filters itself out, will fall back in line. Again, it's just the fact that we did a lot of capital improvements. We did a lot of equipment acquisitions, vehicular acquisitions in the first part of this fiscal year. So I would anticipate that this should catch up, our revenues should catch up. But we had talked about, Dave, in the beginning of the fiscal year that we had a pretty significant carryover and that we were going to funnel that money back for infrastructure and projects. And I think council and community's probably seen the result of some of those projects.
I think it's important for council to recognize the 3 pay periods distort your monthly cumulative, and just the very nature of the city and what they do. It's very difficult to analyze the finances on a month-to-month basis. You have to look at where the projections are for the end of the year. I do have one question in regard to the health insurance premium. Have they discussed with you when they'll give you their earliest idea about what will happen for the next fiscal year?
They have not, and this is certainly something that we want to talk about next Tuesday. Dave, it seems like later and later in the year, especially since I've been doing this, we get the report. I'm not anticipating getting anything from a preliminary standpoint or anything else until probably April or March. What that really is going to put us with is under state code, we have to have the budget submitted to the state by the end of March, and of course we do the levy in April. I do not anticipate us getting any type of feedback from our health insurance providers at that point. So I think one of the things we need to discuss on Tuesday is health insurance and of course employee compensation, those things, which to be quite honest with you, you're probably going to have to wait until the end of the fiscal year or the beginning of the fiscal year before either one of those issues, well, I don't want to say those issues can be resolved. There's things you can do with health insurance, I think, prior to, but we will not know until late in this fiscal year, Dave, where we're going to be with health insurance. And that's very frustrating, but it is what it is.
And it's my understanding that the state's mandated that we increase the pension plan contribution by 1%.
That's correct.
And that starts July 1st?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. Here we go. The state plays games with that every year.
Yeah.
And it's always been a practice in our office that we've always kept it at the high percentage, just because it seems to go up and down depending on election years. So we've always kept it, and it's kept at the July. Here's my political statement. We've always kept it. It'll be the same in July. It's already been factored into this budget at that high rate anyway.
It's 13.5% now?
Yep, I'm good at 14.5.
Moved to 14. Okay.
Yeah, there's discussions about PEIA with the state legislature, so there may be other changes. I'm sure there will be other changes.
I'm sure there'll be other changes.
If you smoke, you may be paying an extra 55 or 45 cents.
Hey, go over that.
That's our tax.
$3.
Go ahead.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? for Ms.
I
Goff?
do, I was just waiting for Dave.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the capital outlay on here,
For council?
for council, yes, okay. You spoke about that we've got some things coming up, like maybe for Strawberry Festival, fireworks, that kind of thing. What other things do we give that out to?
Typically,
we talk about this kind of stuff once a year.
it really is kind of reused, or I use it as a little bit of a reserve fund. If there's certain things that council wants throughout the year, for instance, if council wanted to put a speaker system in here, I know that that's something that's been discussed. Certainly that's something that could be used for a speaker system. Really, I guess just special projects, special things that come from council that they would like to utilize that for. But most recently, in the past several years, we've kind of used it to do our budget revisions. Before we've had to change increase our budget, we've basically shifted a line item to another line item without really truly ever having to increase our budget.
So you use that council outlay or capital outlay or whatever, as a safety net if you had to transfer some to here to there?
Yeah, it's the last safety net before we actually have to increase
Okay.
our budget.
All right, that's what I thought, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Safety nets.
Well, maybe that's not the right term.
Yeah, well,
It's
getting
I got
a few
it.
holes in it right now. So-
I'm not a business administrative person.
But just to be aware of the fact that that's where that line is right now. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Doss on any of that? All right, Mr. Doss, continue, sir.
Again, as we alluded to, I do want to remind council public that we do have a budget hearing coming up next Tuesday. That is next Tuesday at 6 o'clock here. All of the departments have submitted their budget requisitions, and I've had a chance to talk to them. A pretty vanilla budget, I think, if you will. And then, of course, council moving the date back on the forms. We'll probably have to have another budget meeting after the requisitions from the outside entities and agencies are submitted next Friday. But hopefully we should have everything else taken care of to where we can get that off the plate and discuss any of the outside agencies or entities' requests for budget.
Thank you. I believe all the council was on, everyone was on council during budget discussions last year. Did you come in?
I was here.
All right. So
It's part of the
very
formal
familiar with it
process.
then. We know what we're doing.
It's part of the formal process.
Excellent.
Michael, you know I'm not gonna be able to be there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I can give you an update.
Okay, afterwards, I appreciate it.
Now, final thing I want to talk to you about, and this is another calendar scheduling thing for council. I did have an opportunity to talk to the two finalists for the fire chief position, and I want to give you some dates. On February the 16th, Mr. Todd will be interviewed, will be here. Mr. Todd's interviews will start at 2:00 p.m. Kind of how I envision this is from about 2 to 5 o'clock. Council members individually will have an opportunity to meet with both candidates one-on-one. We'll reserve a room here at City Hall, and you'll have an opportunity to talk to them for about a half hour, ask them questions or what have you, get a better feel for that individual. I will need you all to, of course, over 3 council members meeting in a room is illegal. So if you guys can just kind of get with me or kind of come in, we can get you scheduled with those individuals. Then from 5 to 6, Mr. Todd will relax, have dinner, whatever he needs to do. And then he, from about 6 to 8, will go over to the fire department. And our paid staff and our volunteers will have the opportunity to talk to him, get to know him. And then the next day, which is February 17th, our next candidate, Mr. Beeman, will be here. Mr. Beeman's interviews will start at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. And those will go from 1 to 4, so council members will have an opportunity between 1 and 4 to talk to Mr. Beeman. And then from 4 to 5, he'll have some downtime and some dinner. And then from about 5 to 9, he will be over at the fire department talking to our paid staff and volunteers as well. So again, just to recap, Tuesday the 9th, 6 budget meetings. February 16th, starting from 2 to 5, Mr. Todd for fire chief. And then February 17th, the next day, Mr. Beeman from 1 to 4. And again, if council members will get with me, we'll try to grid out a schedule so you all can come in. We're thinking about a half hour for each council member. It doesn't necessarily have to be a half hour, but give you a little bit of one-on-one time with those candidates.
Can I comment real quick? I'm going to take a sec, Dave. I just wanted to say this to everybody at one time. I can only be here like from 3:30 till the end. So if some of you could come in earlier in the day, I would appreciate it, so I could participate. That'd be the earliest time for me, 3:30.
Did you have something to say, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah. Would you anticipate, Michael, that we got a council meeting on the 18th? Would you anticipate that we would make a decision that day in regard to what the consensus is as far as offering the position to one person?
It depends on how you're feeling about the candidates. There's still somewhat of a lengthy process with backgrounds. I do not anticipate that all of the backgrounds will be finished and complete by that time. But if there's a consensus, we can offer a tentative offering to the individual, and then contingent upon successful completion the background, if that's the case. But there will be an opportunity, Mr. Thomas, obviously our 18th meeting, if council wants to. We'll talk more about it as that meeting approaches.
One other suggestion, when you were interviewed for your position, we had another individual that came in, and we had an opportunity to, some of us took out for dinner. And that's an interesting setting when you have that informality take place, and you might want to consider something like that too. I think a couple of the supervisors participated in that also, if you recall. But that was interesting to see the comparison with a person that knows they're getting interviewed versus they're in a much more relaxed setting.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Doss at this point? Mr. Doss, would you have something else to continue, or is that it?
That's all.
All right, I entertain a motion then to go ahead and accept the financial report of Mr. Doss's as submitted.
So moved.
I got a motion, do I have a second? Any questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Doss. Keep up the fine work. Looks like a busy week next week, I see.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, next on our schedule, you see on your agenda Mr. Jay Holland, City Engineer. He is not here today, but I will tell you, in your packets, he was going to talk to you about the FEMA HMGP generators, the water treatment plant improvement project, the McDonald's Route 20 lane widening, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline project, source water protection plan, SCADA system, public safety complex, the Gateway West Transportation Alternative project, and the ACOE local flood control project, the boundary adjustment survey, and the raw water intake emergency generators project. I please ask you to take a look in there. Some of these hit one of your board or another. If you have any questions or comments, please see Mr. Holland regarding those, or myself or another board member. We can help you with that. That was a really quick Mr. Holland.
I like that.
All right, so, but in place of Mr. Holland, we have Mr. Vince Smith, our Building Code Zoning Enforcement Officer, who has a report for you in lieu of Mr. Holland's. So, Mr. Smith, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe you have in front of you an activity report
See it?
Anybody got it?
Wait a minute.
It's just before your building. Just before your permits. Appropriate. What happened to Holland's report?
All right, so the activity report started from October 16th to current. We had one zoning board of appeals meeting. We met on Wednesday, October 28th. It was to construct a 5-unit townhouse on 88 Buckhannon Street, and it was approved. So that project is approved, but we have not issued the building permit yet. We're waiting for better weather. The contractor is. Zoning and building, just kind of routine applications for repair, storage, additions, renovations. We had, in the activity report, we had 68 building permits issued for a total of $615,214. We got a building permit fee of $1,340, all right? Under the new permitting, you'll see that there's 4 on there. We just had another one today, and I will include it in. So we had 5 building permits under the new fee schedule, which a total value of $186,200 for a total permit fee of $1,961. Okay, for the new permit. We had electrical permits at $1,000 for all of those above. So we have $1,000 in electrical permitting fee. All right. Any questions about that?
Yes. Any complaints from anyone that you did the fees to? Did we get any complaints from anyone at the window to you or anything
Absolutely
informally
not.
saying that those were outrageous, ridiculous, no reason to have them? Anything at all?
Not at all.
All right, thank you.
And I have something further down on it that I would like to address about that. I had 13 zoning applications, all were approved. We had 10 asbestos certifications required, 8 elevation certificates required. We had 4 zoning and flood questions, and I had multiple trash and abandoned automobile complaints that were received and remediated.
Good.
Or terminated, or however you want to say it. We took care of it. The Planning Commission, we met on January 19th, discussed parking throughout the city and some vacant buildings. We're trying to get the vacant building registration underway, and it's been a pretty lengthy process, to say the least. And we'll discuss that a little further as it gets closer to the registration. We have a work session coming up on February 16th.
Here at 7 o'clock.
So, yes. The Historic Landmark Commission, we met on January 25th. We discussed street signs and historic plaques. So just to keep you abreast of that. The next meeting will be April 18th at 6 p.m. Should be 2016 and not 15.
Can I ask you something that, I'm the council member assigned to the Planning Commission.
Yes.
And the Historic Landmark, they're going to be talking street signs. Now, is that names of street signs?
No.
No.
Okay, the street signs, okay.
Yeah, we had, I think, some that were damaged.
There were some that were purchased by private individuals that were put out on the streets that were not exactly DOH,
Okay.
approved.
Well, one of the things I want to talk, and help me, Tim and Mr. Osborne, we're doing a parking study downtown, and signage is one of those things that we wanted to talk about. Different things? Okay, never mind, forget it.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Okay.
All right. Housing enforcement, We met on January 27th, discussed the FEMA buyout lots, about identifying those, getting everything off of the FEMA buyout lots. We discussed right-of-ways, fencing, and swimming pools, which is, when it gets a little closer to the season, we may need to address our requirement for a 6-foot fence around every swimming pool. It seemed last year I had a little kickback on 2-foot swimming pools, or a wading pool, as some people called, to put a 6-foot fence around. It was kind of excessive, so we had a little bit of kickback from that. So it may be something, when it gets closer to the season, that we revisit that. There are newer codes out there, and one under the property maintenance that we adopted that lessens that criteria. Okay? Like I say, the next meeting will be April 27th at 3 p.m. for the Housing Enforcement Board. We had Zoning Board of Appeals. We have no appeals pending. Okay? What I would like to say now, just kind of off the cuff, after hearing the seniors, we have a lot of seniors in town, as we are aware of. We had and I'm sure you all read in the paper, that the parish house just got back $4,000 from a contractor for shoddy workmanship. Okay? So, and it was in the paper. It was awarded to the parish house. That particular case, there was a permit issued, but you've got to be able to go out and look at those situations to try to help your citizens so they don't get into that predicament. All right? And we're leaning towards that, but it takes more time. It takes me, and this happened prior to my tenure here, so don't blame me on that one. But it takes more time away from anything else that I'd be trying to do if you do the proper inspections to make sure that our residents are protected. Okay? Right now, we had two were plumbing problems that our residents, and had a gentleman here earlier that I was able to help. The contractor did not get a permit. All right? Did the work, or did part of the work, took all the man's money, didn't come back. I threatened him with, calling the proper authorities. He finally come back. When he come back, I said, all right, you're getting a building permit for what you should have done to start with. Well, the building permit fee was $10. So, and you double that building permit fee. So it's $20. Not a big deal. The guy paid the $20. Wasn't really a penalty to him because he had no incentive to get a building permit. That's where we're going with these fees. If you have the fees to where if you don't get a permit and you double that fee, it's like, ouch, I should have got a permit. That protects your citizens. All right, we caught this one and was able to help this gentleman. The contractor came back, fixed it, he was very happy. We have two other ones. One, right now, it was a plumbing problem. Contractor did not get a permit, and I'm in contact with that contractor right now. Charged, our sewer department went up and looked at it, put in about 25, 30 foot of pipe, some fittings, $10,000 charged this elderly woman. All right? And our sewer department said they would do those jobs all day long and make that kind of money, you retire in a month. It was sad, it really was. All right? We did not get a permit on that one as well because there's no incentive to make them get a permit when it's only a $10, $20 permit. All right? There's no need. When I double fine them, all right, it's $20, it's $40. So you got an issue. We're not helping our residents here. I'm dealing right now with a roof. This roof was did not get a permit, the contractor did not get a permit, came to an elderly woman, put 22 square of metal roofing on her house, $30,000. Okay, did not get a permit, and we catch him, the roofing permit's a $10 permit, so it's a $20, that's his penalty. He made $30,000 off of this woman. If we get these people to come in, get them aware to come in to get the permits, we can, and that's something we'll need to put in our newsletter. We can help these people if they come in to get permits. If they don't come in to get permits, then they get taken advantage of in some cases. I know it's sad to say, there are a lot of good contractors out there. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing all the contractors. But there are contractors out there that love to prey on the elderly.
So Vince, is it the homeowner that should get that permit?
It could be either one, and that's something that we probably, in our newsletter, when we put out, I want to make it a point to make sure that the homeowner knows that if the contractor does not show a permit, or it doesn't have a permit,
don't let him start
don't
work.
let him start work.
Yeah.
We've got to make an emphasis on that,
Right.
of obtaining the permits. Because if a permit's in place, I can help you. The permit's not in place, it's very hard for me to go back and try to help the residents out.
And you can actually see the legitimacy of that contractor, because the contractor in these cases that are above board, first thing they're going to do is go to city council and get the permit before they even start work and say, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, here we go, now we're ready to go.
Right.
Yeah, it's common sense.
But it's, when a contractor knows that if he gets penalized, it's a $20 penalty, you get more than that for a speeding ticket.
Out of 30,000, yeah, that's not gonna hurt you.
Well, in speaking about your electrical permit fees, I mean, I know you're worried about our building permit fees being high, but Scott and I just copied and pasted those fees. We didn't make them up out of the clear blue sky, and we told you that they were from another city. Your electrical permit fees that you've adopted and are charging are higher than any of the cities that I work for, but their residents are fine with that. That fee is higher than all the others. It's, matter of fact, higher than Clarksburg's, where we got our building permit fee schedule from.
Right.
Okay, so.
Interesting there, isn't it? Yes.
It is.
I find that very interesting myself, especially since you pointed it out about a month or two ago. Any other, okay. Mary, you asked a question, anybody else? We'll go along the line, Mr. Pugh.
One thing I'd like to ask is if these people that are going around and charging $30,000, are they bonded too? Because that could be a very...
Until you come in, we have you registered. We check your insurance. That's the purpose of this. Then we know that you're a legitimate contractor. You can go get a contractor's license. Anybody could go down and get a contractor's license and never carry insurance. Put workers on the roof, or a worker falls off the roof, well, the homeowner now becomes responsible. We're trying to protect the residents, basically, is what we're
Then
trying to do.
I agree, that makes sense, and I'm gonna interject. Then I don't think that the property owner should be the one to come get that. I think you ought to have make it the rule that contractor come down here and show his insurance. That's what all the legitimate ones do. When they're bidding on jobs.
And you're right, they do, but sometimes, and that's why we need to appeal to the owners to say, listen, make sure that your contractor shows you the permit so we can help you not get taken in this process.
And it should be the homeowner's due diligence to make sure that they are protected.
Well, you would think, but that,
So the elderly are very susceptible.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Did you have anything else?
I don't like that.
Yes, how long's your permits good for?
A permit is good for 6 months with a 6-month extension. Without, all you got to do before it expires, come in and say, hey, bad weather, I didn't get it done, ran out of money.
Are you keeping track of that too?
Yeah, we have a track. We have a we have the date when it was issued, and I can tell you when it needs to be renewed and what the year term of that that permit would be.
Do you
Yes.
think there'll be ever an instance where somebody goes longer a year, or do they go back and they have to pay that permit again?
You know, I've never run into that, but if you showed me that, hey, I've done a considerable amount of work, I've run out of money, I had to wait for my income tax, or I needed to get a loan or something, myself, I don't see a real problem with that. I mean, we're not here to hurt the residents, we're here to help them.
I just wondered if you
Yeah.
keep track of that.
We do.
Good question. Mr. Thomas, you have anything, sir?
Yeah, I got a couple things. First of all, Vince, I appreciate what you've been doing, and I know you get a lot of pushback sometimes. Example, for the swimming pools, and you know, we really need to take a serious look at that, and there are national standards now, so I think the council needs to support you in that respect. Michael Doss, last council meeting, suggested to the council that we should maybe rescind or adjust some of the permit fees. Both Pam and Robin, when this was first brought up by Scott, were concerned about some of the increases, and I think it was more on some of the commercial enterprises maybe than others, but I'd like to have Michael address what he discussed last council meeting, and it seems like there's a further discussion that's needed maybe.
Well, I'm wondering if, because we're going to be talking about that in F1, I'm wondering if that is the appropriate time to do it under strategic issues for discussion and vote. It's amend and modify ordinance 398. We could do it now, but we just end up reiterating it here in a little bit, so I'm wondering if that might be
That's fine. I'll wait till
more appropriate time. Do you gentlemen feel that that's more appropriate time to discuss that?
Yeah. But there was one other.
You can still be here?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere now.
There's one other comment. We had quite a lengthy discussion about the vacant properties and sending out letters to all the vacant property owners. I believe that was our conversation we had in the
yes.
Building enforcement meeting.
Right.
And there were some concerns. I mean, ultimately what we're trying to do is get the properties taken care of in the city limits so that it's an attractive environment, quality of life is enhanced. And but there were some concerns about, are we putting a burden on our employees to some degree when we're sending those letters out, and what kind of response that they're going to receive from the citizens out there. Am I stating that correctly or not?
I would bet you probably would be, and that's why we hopefully will get Scott to address some of those concerns. That ordinance that was in place that you guys or your predecessors adopted years past, all we changed was the fee schedule there on the vacant building. That's all we changed. All right, so we're working under an old ordinance that you all had passed. Well, reading it, Amby had come up with a very good point that said if there was an appeal, it came directly to council. Well, I don't think we probably want to bring people into the council chambers and argue that point. I think we probably need to take it out of your hands and go to the Housing Enforcement Board.
Right.
Like everything else goes, and let them deal with those issues.
And then their recommendation would come to us in the form of whatever
Absolutely.
decision was made.
In those houses, you're exactly right, Dave, that those houses, we're not after houses that people keep up, don't depreciate the neighbor's property. We're not after those kind. We're after the ones, the absentee owners that never come, maybe cut the grass when I send them a letter or call them on the phone, and there's always issues with their house. That's who we're trying to target. All right? I know we had 157, and that's a living document that will keep changing. People will move in, maybe move out. So it's an ongoing process, and we come up with a different idea about people that had in the same building 3 or 4 units in the same building. If they had 1 or 2 rented, we're leaving the rest of them alone. I mean, they're still, they could make the argument that we're trying to rent it out. We haven't found a good tenant yet.
Yeah, I just want to point out, there was about a 2.5 hour discussion with the Housing Enforcement Board, and, I appreciate the time and effort you're putting into it, along with other individuals on the board.
Right, I mean, the girls in the office, they did a good job with that.
It's not an easy issue to address.
No, it really isn't, and myself, I was kind of floored that we had that many. I thought I was looking at probably 30 houses. When Amy gave me this list, I said, no way. I said, this can't be.
Well, that's over a 38-year period.
And you're giving people a reasonable time to respond also.
Absolutely, yes.
And Vince goes door to door. I mean, he'll go. He told a lot of stories where he actually went and knocked on the doors, and then he got people helping him in the neighborhood saying, well, I had an issue, but there's somebody down the block that's got an issue too. And that's great. Thank you.
And the truth of the matter is, this list should have been generated probably about 2 years ago. It was about 4 years ago that the ordinance was enacted, which is now we have to look at because, again, it's not exactly what I would call a very good ordinance. There's some issues in it, determining what's vacant, what's not vacant, what's storage, what's not storage, what's proper outside or inside. There's a lot of things, and it was just a generic ordinance that was set through by previous administrations. Mr. Pugh, you had something to say?
Yeah, Vince, away from the vacant properties, now what about the residential properties that are inhabited and present a factor to the city as far as being dangerous and
Under the property maintenance code that we just adopted, that gives us that ability to do that. We can address those issues. We're still working on the citation portion of that. We have not fine-tuned that exactly yet, but you gotta have recourse in order to make people do, some people, I won't say all, some people to do something. You gotta have a penalty.
First things first.
do you know how many of those are going to be in the city?
I was too busy doing the abandoned.
But I can guarantee it's probably half as many as what you've got in the abandoned ones.
Probably.
All on my street.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith regarding his report?
Mayor, can I make one point real quick?
Please do, Mr. McClure.
In some towns, if you're saying the only penalty for a guy says I'm gonna risk it, not get a permit, do this job and fly on. In some places, that's a misdemeanor. So you could issue him a citation, said see you in municipal court, up to a $500 fine. Do you know if that's an option here or not? And if it is, council might consider making that a misdemeanor to operate without pulling a business permit. Something to consider. A lot of places they do that. So it's not just goes from $10 to $20. Here's your criminal misdemeanor citation. Come to court, you operate without a permit. Just something to consider.
That's not a bad idea because a lot of people I've talked to said, I'm not getting the permit. All I gotta do is pay it when they catch me.
Make it a misdemeanor.
That is what I've heard too.
Let's double check that then and see. I'm not sure.
If it's not on our book,
I
I'm
don't
glad
think
to
it
put
is,
together for some upcoming meeting.
Yeah.
This has been good, thank you.
I've had complaints though about people having to get permits to paint inside their house, all over the house. It's gonna cost them more, $250.
We don't charge permits for interior painting, carpeting, no.
There's a lot of misinformation.
That's exactly right.
And there's also an exception to the rule for what do you call it, under $2,000 or under $1,800. If it's a handyman, what is the handyman? Did we change that?
$2,500. $2,500, yeah.
Handyman can do it, yes.
And the handyman can do it, and there is a permit, but again, you don't have the other fees that you have. So
It's been that way for years.
yeah,
It has, yeah.
a lot of people don't know that as well. I've gotten questions.
Handyman have tried to do $10,000 projects, but aren't able to do that.
Good luck finding a handyman.
Yeah. What was his name?
All right, so thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate all the work. We know you're busting butt on this. We appreciate it. Step by step, we are going to get through this process, and we will have one of the strictest or the best codes, I think, in the state of West Virginia, particularly for our property owners. All right, Mr. McClure, City Attorney of McClure Glow Code LLC, or PLLC. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. Scott McClure, City Attorney. Got several items here. The first issue, which I've been dreading, it's the amendments to Article 300, which is the Animal Care and Control Ordinance. As you're aware, a committee met with the members of council, Ms. Bray, and a few others on, and we got 27 changes. I'm going to go over each one of them, unfortunately, just because Smith tells me not to. It's been hotly debated, so there's a bunch of changes here. I think it seems like I should touch on at least the significant ones.
How about if you allow me to jump through it, and then if you got anything during the...
I like that.
Yeah, yeah, because,
All right,
you know.
so the amendments to Article 300, and folks that have it with you, you can already go through this. In Ordinance 300.16, Section 1A, we remove the TY from the end of property, or proper. 300.16, Section 2A, remove all the paragraph except 2 for the first sentence and read this as a bit, well, it reads, if the dog is visible to the responsible party at all times, a responsible party is outside with the dog, provided that for a period not to exceed 10 hours in a 24-hour period, the dog may remain out of sight of the responsible party.
Mayor, real quick, we corrected that on Ms. Maria's recommendation. It's going to be a lot simpler now. It's just going to say no dog, or words to this effect, no dog shall be tethered for any period of time in excess of 10 hours in any 24-hour period. Take out the being in somebody's sight, et cetera, no dog can be tethered for more than 10 hours in a 24-hour period.
Okay, next one was 300.16, Section 2, which was removing the language of the martingale greyhound collar shall be not used. Now it states the dog must be properly fitted with and wearing a non-choke harness or collar made of leather, nylon, or similar material. Choke or prong collar shall not be used. Pretty simple. 300.16, Section 2 did read 15-foot long, free from tangles, and weigh no more than 1/8 of the dog's weight. It now reads, the tether must be reasonable length and weight according to the dog's weight and the size of the property, period. That's that one. 300.16, did you have a question? Oh, okay. The next one is 300.16, Section 2, A7. Delete everything after the first sentence, which the dog is not tethered outside. What we did delete was including but not limited to extreme heat or near freezing temperatures, thunderstorms, tornadoes, floods, unless adequate flood, potable water, shade, shelter, and protection is provided, as provided in subsection 3 below. That was all deleted out. What you have in there is a very simple sentence telling you what the weather is. 300.16, Section 2, pulled out if a pulley, it was all about the trolley pulley line system, just pulled that all out. It's really not used that much. 8, 300.16, Section 2B1, 300.16, took out the notes. What did you do there? I'm not exactly sure on this, never mind. What we did take out is, and be of sufficient distance from any fence so as to prohibit the dog's access to the fence. As a simple, we also deleted in Section 300.16, Section 3, pretty much the whole thing. Animal food must meet and exceed National Research Council standards and should meet American Associated Feed Company officials, yada yada. I'm not going to read it because we took it out. Number 12, 300.16, Section 3, we deleted that as well. Animals should be provided access to clean, fresh, potable water, and it goes on for a sentence. Number 13, we took out Section .16, Section 3, delete. Shaded area must be provided that is sufficient to protect the animal from the direct rays of the sun. 14, we took out 300.16, Section 3, travel or overnight crates, the use of airline-approved crates, travel kennels, anything defining the space that is confining for an animal.
We deleted.
300.16, section 3D2, substituted should be for shall in this sentence. During inclement weather, the structure shall be provided with a sufficient quantity of suitable bedding material during inclement weather to provide insulation and protection against cold and dampness and promote retention of body heat. 16, 300.16, we deleted out when the ambient temperature is above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, inadequate, either natural, constructed, or some combination. So it now reads, shade from the direct rays of the sun shall be provided. Period. 17 is 300.16, 3D4, deleted in its entirety, that whole section. And that was about farm dogs. 18, 300.16, section 3B5, renaming the confinement areas to outdoor areas. 19, 300.16, 3D5A, deleted that whole section on that a humane office may be discretion in granting a waiver to the square footage requirement. We're not discreting anything. There's not going to be any discretion anymore. We took out that whole paragraph. What it does read now, if an animal is confined to an outdoor pen, it must be of adequate and reasonable size and is in no event less than 10 by 10 or 100 square feet per dog. Simple as that. 300.16, section 3B, 5B, deleted that out, that whole paragraph. So to read, dogs shall not be penned outside during extreme weather unless the pen is equipped to provide adequate protection, period. One sentence. 200, 300.16, section 3D, 5C, deleted in its entirety. We took all of that out. That is if an animal is maintained in a confined area for more than hours, that's what that was about. 300.16, section 3D, 6. Took out the whole section on may be readily cleaned, kept in good repair, and protect the animal. We're not going to regulate what their conditions are. That's not our job. But it will read, surface area. The interior surfaces of all indoor confinement areas must be constructed and maintained so that they are substantially impervious to moisture and provide for adequate drainage. All outdoor confinement area flooring should be impermeable material or well-drained aggregate. So we don't want them on mud or grass or in a puddle. 23, 300.16, section 3D7, deleted out that whole thing and added one word, properly. So what we're saying there is all waste drainage should be properly taken care of and disposed of properly. 24, 300.16, section 3D8, deleted in its entirety. That was under defining temperature, ventilation, and lighting. Defining temperature, defining ventilation. 25, 300.16, section 4. We didn't do anything with, did we? 300.4? No. 26 is 300.16 provision, section 5. What we did do is what defining an animal cruelty, and this was, as I recall, Mr. Thomas's suggestion that on a second offense, if the animal continues to show evidence of cruelty or inhumane treatment as set forth in this ordinance, the owner or guardian of the animal shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and, upon conviction thereof, shall be fined not less than $300 nor more than $1,000. We were looking at changing that. Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
Well, that's good. Got one more sentence there. I think,
That's
again,
right.
this was in accord with Councilman Thomas's request, and I'm assuming this came from the committee as well. Any second or subsequent violation of this ordinance may result in forfeiture of the animal in accordance with state and local law.
That's it.
So I think that's going to require some type of due process hearing before you take anybody's animal, so we just use the general language in accordance with state and local law. That way, if somebody's repeatedly cruelly treating an animal, then there's a mechanism for removing the animal from the environment.
Of course, my position was do it one time, you take the animal away from the owner.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
They don't take kids away.
Well, and it's
Well, they
actually
should.
really nice, but
They should.
we are going to give a second chance in
I
this
think
case.
it's
We
very
can always
nice.
change it. Any questions or comments, Mr. McClure? Did you have anything you wanted added? I know I ran right through that.
No, that was excellent. That was a lot faster than I would have done it, and I'll make sure it's in a clear copy now. So you got a draft there.
Right.
Next time it's going to be as it will be passed unless you folks decide to amend it. But it'll be as it came from the committee, and I'll run it past Maria, of course, and the mayor to make sure that we're all on the same page. That
Well,
it
the
is-
committee has approved and accepted these changes. We recommended that to the city council, or the mayor and
Yes.
council.
And this is in a rough draft form, because as
Right.
you see, we've taken out, and now we gotta make sure the sentence structures and the periods are, i's are crossed.
Okay, so when it comes back, that'll
It's
be
gonna
the-
come back as a first reading.
Yes, sir.
Unless you guys, in the meantime, wanna change something to this. And if you want to, you need to do it before the next reading.
Yes.
Or we're just gonna have it as a reading again.
Yeah, it's a much better ordinance than it was previously drafted.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of compromise.
A lot of compromise.
Some I don't agree with, but that's okay. And I see it as a working document anyway.
It is.
You know, nothing is perfect when you first put it together, and there may have to be some adjustments a year or 2 years from now. I think you need to educate people on how, what's
That's
cruel
something
and
else
what's
that
not.
they can
Yeah.
do.
I commend the people that worked on this. This is much better than it was initially.
Well, they worked extremely hard on it.
Yeah.
They put something together first, and then we hashed it out, and then they went back and hashed it out again. So it's been a ton of work by those people. I mean, Maria says.
Yeah, and I got sucked in after I said, well, you can't tell me, I can't tell them I know.
I want to compliment the mayor. The mayor kept us really focused on this. That
He really did.
was not. It's like tying two cats' tails together in some cases.
Oh, that's cruel.
But yeah, but he kept
It was
us.
cruelty, yeah. it was.
I agree with that.
Better than
It was
shooting.
cruelty.
He kept us focused, and that was.
Thank you. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Pam, go ahead.
There's one I have a question about. It's number 19.
Okay.
Says if an animal is confined in an outdoor pen, it must be of adequate and reasonable size, which I agree, and in no event less than 10 by 10 foot square, 100 square feet area per dog. I see a big difference in putting a 2.5 pound dog out there compared to a 150 pound dog. In
Well,
that.
that's what it says, reasonable size.
But it says in no event less than that.
Yeah,
If it's a 200-pound dog, 10 by 10 is not enough. That's
you're not gonna need a bed.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's why there's that discretion between the officer and when they come, if they get fined for such a thing, that officer could look and see. If it's a chihuahua, that's perfect,
That's the
good.
only thing I see that makes it cost a little bit of a.
Trusted a lot of the discretion to whoever the animal control officer is going to be, so that we wouldn't have to over-legislate.
Right, exactly.
We were saying that the small dogs should have at least 10 by 10.
At least.
But somebody that's got a 150-pound dog, they don't want a 10 by 10.
Right.
And that addresses that.
Wouldn't move in that.
Correct.
All right, any other questions, Mrs. Caparo?
That's it.
Thank you very much, good point.
It's much better.
Point taken. And Mr. McCoy, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple more small
Go ahead.
issues. Still working on the Sudden Link head-in lease agreement. I've sent some emails to the mayor, Michael, and I think also Amby. We've been negotiating the rate for the 7-year head-in lease. Hopefully, I have not heard back from the Sudden Link representative, but fairly recently, but we put that together, so hopefully that'll be coming to fruition very soon. Also, I have been instructed and spoke with Mr. Smith about preparing a letter to the property owners on Wood Street regarding the FEMA violation issue there, and whoever was involved in that meeting is aware of that. So we'll be putting a letter together maybe tomorrow. One more thing, we also, in conjunction with that meeting, I spoke with Amby and Mr. Smith, and we put together, we've already prepared a draft letter to the property owners regarding the vacant building. I don't know if that's been circulated or not, but we, Amby and I took some time to put together a letter that is right now in draft form for the vacant property owners. One more thing about Ordinance 391, which is on-the-spot citation. As you might be aware, the municipal judge, emeritus, I guess you might say, has had a couple significant change, or I wouldn't say significant, some changes to the ordinance that he's proposed. He and I have had several discussions on it. I've also talked to Mr. Smith about the potential changes. I don't care to make those changes. There's some things he had a great deal of consternation, I don't think it's too strong a word, about. I don't mind to change that. I think it's fine the way it is, but if it would make sense for people to change that. He's worried about the zoning officer basically, quote unquote, finding somebody guilty on the side of the curb, and he would rather that once a notice is gone, then they don't comply, that they just stroke them a citation and say come to court. With very little effort, I could probably make those amendments if it would be appealing to council, and again, Vincent can jump in on. I think that's the way he does it in every place else.
That's the way you do it.
I'd like to get Vincent's opinion on it.
Okay. Vincent likes the way it is, I can tell you that.
I think that makes perfect sense about changing that, so it doesn't put all the, I guess, authority on me.
Sure.
To where if maybe I'm having a bad day and you blew grass out in the street and I'm going to fine you $300 because I fought with a bunch of people. We got to have some way of going in front of the judge, and the judge says, wait a minute, time out. Maybe Mr. Smith was having a bad day and he really, let's make this right.
You want due process.
Beg your pardon?
You want due process.
Right.
Yes. Well, I don't, me personally, I don't think the ordinance as it's constructed lacks due process. If somebody gets a citation, the onus is on them. Just like our parking tickets, the onus on them is to request a hearing. And that's the part that's lost in it, but you can always have due process. You can always request a hearing. The problem is, and I understand what the judge is saying, is it basically says it's prima facie evidence against them, and if you don't appeal it, you're guilty, and then you got to post a bond, these other things. We can strike the bond, we can make it issue a citation and give somebody a court date and say, come on down here and do it. And the reality of this ordinance is it's about 85% compliant. Once somebody gets the notice that says you have 10 days in order to remediate this problem, the statistics in West Virginia from the people who put the data together is about 85% self-compliance. So that reduces the sample size of who's going to be needing these hearings, et cetera. So I don't think it causes us any heartburn. We kind of copied the model that was passed around the state, and it's effective in those places, but really what you're going to want to do is not exact fees from somebody, but rather compel compliance. And the first notice usually does that, doesn't it?
It does. Like you said, about 85%. You'd be surprised the amount of people that you give them 10 days to remediate a problem, they're going to take care of it. They don't want the next step to kick in.
And there's about 5% are not going to do anything at all regardless of what you do, so get ready for those people as well. So that number might be low, but that's all the issues. Maybe after, if we can be brief, I'd like to talk about pending litigation, just briefly in executive session.
Okay.
Yeah, but just be 3, 4, 5 minutes, wouldn't be long.
Okay.
That's all I have unless there's some questions.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
On the property that we're talking about, the FEMA lots
Yes, sir.
and everything, the letter is ready to go?
No, but I'm putting it together. It's got to be, I think, sent by March 15th. What day did I get it? February 15th?
February.
Yeah, we'll be ready by February 15th. Yes.
And how much time are we giving them to comply?
To March 15th, I believe.
To March
I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
30 days, I think,
30
whatever,
days.
once they receive the letter.
They've already been told in person, and we're going to give them another 30 days?
Yeah,
They've been told
They've been told a lot of times. Do we have to give them 30 days?
Shut up, Mary.
Or can we give them 15 days?
I don't know if there's any rule on that. I mean, the mayor spoke with them personally. At one juncture, he had an attorney. I don't know whether they still do or not. Might still have to go that route. I mean, might have to send a letter to their attorney. So unless 30 days is required by some type of statute, I'm assuming that's just a matter of courtesy. But
Well,
I don't know.
the board voted for March 15th.
Okay.
Oh,
Then that's what
okay.
Okay, recognition of the board. All
Whatever
right,
the board wanted to do, that's what we did.
that's good.
All right, any other questions or comments from Mr. McClure? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. You were talking about contractors a few minutes ago, and the thought occurs to me, I want to try to make some extra money this summer by mowing lawns. Maybe 4 or 5 or 6 customers or something like that around, say, my neighborhood. Am I going to have to get a contractor's license and insurance and bonding and all this?
No. Are you a contractor? Do you have an EIL or EIN number? Do you have a business in your name?
I had a business as my name.
As a contractor or as a lawn improvement guy, do you file taxes, IRS through that?
No.
No, you're not a contractor.
No, I'm not a
You're a
contractor.
private citizen.
No, but thank you for bringing that up, Dennis. We'll consider it.
Oh, okay, thanks a lot.
Your liability waiver insurance first.
Sit down.
I do want to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
I had to ask.
all right.
No, you didn't.
What else you want me to do?
All right, under correspondence, folks, in your packets, there are none. On your consent agenda, you'll notice the approval of the minutes from the January 21 regular council meeting, approval of the building and wiring permits, and approval of the payment of the bills. Do you want any of those 3 taken out of the consent agenda and placed into F?
I move we accept them.
I have a motion to
Second.
accept the consent. I got a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we get down to the fun part. F1, strategic issues for discussion and vote. Amend and modify ordinance 398, specifically section 398.02, the building permit fees to revert to building permit fees adopted under or prior to the approval and adoption of 398. What that means is that you would like to take it from 398 to the original ordinances and what was that number before? 391? What was the original?
245.
245, that's it. I got it over here somewhere. Permit back to the 245 numbers, which is really, this is what you wanted to do as council, as I recall, Pam and Dave. Was this your babies?
Yeah, but nobody's ever called us to have a meeting.
You are a committee of 3.
Okay.
These gentlemen are pretty busy doing a lot of things on their own. They can't pull you together for that committee. It's your committee. You need to do the committee, and I can't do it for you.
Well, I would ask that Michael Doss respond to his suggestion last council meeting. And I don't think we all agreed at that time to rescind it completely. We discussed it to kick the can down the road, so to speak. And this was an excellent discussion. Vincent tonight sharing some of the information he shared with his council. But Michael, would you like to elaborate a little bit more on what your position was last council meeting?
Sure. Be happy to. I do want to affirm, I stand by my opinion from the last council meeting. I think the permit fees, with due respect, are a little bit of a reach. I think we need to go back and visit those. It's an interesting situation we put ourselves in because, we don't want to send a negative message that we're not business friendly, we're not contractors friendly with any opportunity that we have in the city of Buckhannon from a commercial standpoint. We should seize that. We should take advantage of that and encourage that, foster that. Same thing goes for residents. I do think the permits that were approved were high. I really do. I think that a committee should be formed and should visit those fees. I understand what Vince is talking about. Those are horrible situations. They really are horrible situations. But I think maybe using those situations is kind of a moment where we can look and say, okay, if you drive a car and you don't have a license, if you don't get a license and you practice medicine, they're pretty nasty penalties for that. Maybe that's something that we need to look at, is for those folks that violate and do not apply for those permits. Maybe that's where you get those folks, because there's a lot of good contractors out there that go through the process no matter what the fee is. Other events you can attest to that. And I think that's part of the reason why we do some of the things we do with building permits and with property maintenance, is to assure that good contractors do a good job and we protect our citizens and we protect those good contractors. So I think maybe a misdemeanor, that might be a little too steep. I think if someone is out there, specifically with the elderly, trying to basically gouge elderly individuals, I don't know, there's fraud laws for that. There's breach of contract laws. Those laws are in place, and those are pretty, you can get jailable time for committing acts of fraud. So I think from that particular situation or those situations, then absolutely we should look at the penalty for failure. I mean, $10 for a roofing permit and $20 if you violate that. That's easy. That's what you need to look at. So I think that solves that problem. But I really feel that we should go back. And again, I'm not a council member, but I really would encourage council to go back and look at these fees and utilize the committee and have contractors come in and have a really good discussion about this. I still stand by what I'm saying. I think I would recommend council modify ordinance 398. Take a step back from these current fees that we're charging now. The only way to go at this point, because I don't assume council's going to make a decision tonight on any type of change in fees, would be to revert back to ordinance 245 and those fees that were being charged no more than 30 days ago. That way we still have fees in place, and then give the committee the time and the opportunity to take a look at this and even consider stiffer penalties or actual penalties for those folks that violate not getting a permit. But I'm concerned personally, professionally, I'm concerned with some of the things that we do with enterprise zones, trying to encourage business in those developments. And then on the other end, I talked about $30,000 for a building permit on a $2 million building, plus about $40,000 just in contractors B&O, $70,000. And we don't get $2 million buildings, unfortunately, in the city. And when we do, we should embrace that. We should support that, because that usually means jobs and things coming in. And certainly that from a home perspective too, as we try to get people to clean up properties or put roofs on their house, put siding on their house, or whatever improvements they need to make. We need to try to create an environment where we don't necessarily penalize them. But obviously we do need to look at the fees. But again, I still stand by my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'd like to ask.
Go ahead. I knew you were going to ask.
Yeah, Vince, can you respond?
Well,
And I do want to say before he does, this is not the committee. And this is a reason why, and we're going to sit here for another hour and a half talking about what we're going to have to talk about in the committee. I really have a problem with that, but I will continue with this line of questioning, and then I do want us to get to a decision on this vote. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I believe what we had in place was 27 years of the same thing. You hadn't moved that for 27 years, hadn't changed your fee. Nothing else stayed for 27 years. We all know that, correct?
Right.
Maybe that's why that jump looks so drastic. It's the same thing that's in place at Clarksburg. That's where we cut and pasted it from, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's what residents in Clarksburg are paying. Are they the same as we are? No, they're not. And I agree to that. But our electrical permits, we're on the high end of our electrical permits. We're on the bottom end of our building permits. Maybe, like Michael's saying, maybe we did too big of a jump too fast. And in saying that, I put a proposal together to cut these permits, these fees, in half. All right? And it's all, as you can see, and I'll pass it out. You can compare them. Here's your ordinance that you had.
Yes.
Pass one up. Take one of each and pass it down. Maybe we consider that as part of that. But to go back to something that was 27 years old just doesn't seem right to me.
Can I have 5 minutes?
Wait a minute. 5 minutes for what? What do you want?
She wants to review it.
Oh, no, we're not.
Oh, you didn't want us to review it?
No, you're gonna, not after you guys can't even read it 4 times and make a decision. We're not coming back on another reading.
And Michael is not saying we rescind it permanently. He says rescind it.
I'm getting there.
And then come up with a new
This
fee
is
structure.
interesting, a lot of people.
It's more like a vendor model.
All right, Mr. McClure, advisor,
Just real,
please.
on a procedural matter, you could not at one reading repeal an ordinance that you pass in 2 readings. So it's equal dignity. You got to do it the same way you did it. So this is in effect, this is a first reading of whatever you might do here. And I don't really matter. I just want to let you know you cannot repeal this in 1 reading.
Okay.
It would take 2 readings to change it, to amend it back to the rate it was.
All right, here's what I'd
By
like
law.
to do. Here's what I'd like to do, and I know we can sit here and talk about it all night. I'd like to, I would really entertain a motion, I'd really appreciate a motion to take Mr. Doss's, Mr. Smith's recommendations under advisement. I would like to have this committee next week as soon as possible, review this, read it, and get back with those 3. You can get together, it's not a quorum. In this case, it'd be more of a working session. Get back, get those numbers, and then we can have this before for a amendment for a first reading, for amendment to read. Is that all right?
I'll make that motion.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion on that? Does everybody understand what we're up to here?
So anyone of us can be on the committee that wants to.
You can actually, not on the committee, you've already got 3 for the committee, but if you have recommendations, get it to one of them or to
Submit it
Mr.
to them.
Doss or Mr. Smith.
Question by the press?
Yeah, who's on the committee again?
Mary, Pam, and Mr. Thomas. Mrs. Albaugh, Mr.
No, Robin.
I'm sorry, Robin.
Thank you. Robin, Pam, Dave.
Robin,
Robin, Pam, and Dave Thomas.
You said it would be a working,
No, it's a committee, so it's a working session, there's no business, it's just about this, so they can't talk about anything else.
I'll make the coffee and muffins.
Property.
we can attend the session though.
No, I would prefer you did it.
And can you restate what the motion was?
The motion is to,
Have the committee take responsibility.
I know. Let me make sure, so that, Andy, repeat the motion, please.
I didn't get it.
All right. We had a motion to,
It's on the recorder.
to take under advisement the recommendations from Mr. Doss and Mr. Smith in regards to the permit fee structure. Take it under advisement and a review as the committee to formally do so by the end of next week, whichever date that is, Andy, next Friday.
State your
If not,
That's the 12th.
if not, then the recommendations by Mr. Smith will stand, and that will be what we will use because he is the zoning enforcement officer. Is that clear? If you don't, come back to this committee or get to that committee with the numbers you want. Mr. Smith's 50% will work, okay?
Okay.
All right, good. Any other questions on that,
But
Katie? Did
not
that answer?
not the current ordinance as it stands.
The motion is to the committee to get together and look at the recommendations from Mr. Doss
Okay.
and then come back. That's really as simple as I can put it.
Then when they present it to the council, then we will have a chance then to review it and perhaps make some suggestions at that time too.
I hope you read it, yes, you get 2 readings.
That's not what he said, Ron. He said for you to give your recommendations.
I know what
to
he
them.
said, I'm just asking another question, Mayor.
That's up to the committee. Do you want to make a date now? Can you 3 make a
We're
date
going to do
now?
it Monday morning,
Monday morning.
February the 8th.
And I'll be glad to do it at my house with coffee and muffins. Tim, if you want to come.
Excellent. There you go, Monday, April.
I'm on your council.
All right, so that's closed. Thank you very much. I'm glad we got through that without F2, resolution 2016-03.
Did we vote on that?
No, it's gone to committee. You made a motion. Oh,
Made a motion to send it to committee.
you got to vote on it. We didn't vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yeah, there you go, motion carries. I'm sure we get out early tonight. All right, resolution 2016-03, the annex for the Upshur County Emergency Operations Plan. This has been worked on for almost a year and a half since I started as recorder. All it is giving us, and I'll actually let Mr. McClure tell us exactly what it is, but it's an annex to the disaster plan, which you might have seen in action during that winter storm. A lot of our departments used this annex even before it was accepted as a way or a means to facilitate the great work that was done over that snowstorm. I have every reason to believe that any other type of storm of such a magnitude or more, this city is well prepared to deal with it. Mr. McClure, do you want to highlight anything in the resolution?
Well, just simply, this is the City of Buckhannon's functional annex. Name of the document is Functional Annex Integrating City Responses into the Upshur County EOP, which is Emergency Operation Plan. The language is pretty straightforward. Basically says we understand that Buckhannon and Upshur County have to work together in cases of emergency, that a lot of the facilities for Upshur County are located within the corporate limits of the City of Buckhannon, and that this will make it easier and will sanitize the process for doing emergency operations between the two entities, which is obviously critical, so that's the deal. And there's a copy, I think, in the mayor's office, maybe the recorder's office as well.
Yes, the full annex is in there. And we will have a review drill, hopefully sometime in July, maybe before July. I'd like to have it before then, but there could be some issues with you guys being trained on it. So we might have to wait till after July 1, but there will be a form of training for this disaster annex. And CERT is always involved. But primarily, this gives us the opportunity with an emergency. If I call or the mayor calls a state of emergency, it enacts a lot of different key procedures, one of which, the most important, is reimbursement from FEMA and national government on any disaster monies that we spend. That's the key. That's why the county does it, and that's why the governor does it. So we've added to it. So is there any other questions on that? Then I'd entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Pugh?
Can you, in that state of emergency, regulate whether or not there's traffic on the streets and impose fines upon people driving if you're in state of emergency?
You could develop an ordinance for such through the police code. I will say that there was a $600 fine in Washington DC if you were out driving during a snowstorm and they told you to stay off the streets. I don't know if that's really...
They have that in Ohio and it works really well.
It could work. It could save some lives for people trying to get out. We could look at that, but I think it would go through our police code, not necessarily through the disaster code.
Motion.
Okay, so I have a motion for Resolution 2016-03, Annex Upshur County Emergency Ops. I have a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
I think you want to vote this, don't you?
That's right.
Roll call?
It's a resolution.
Yes, it's a resolution, so Andy will now call the roll.
Council Alcott?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yes.
Council Simon?
Yes.
Council Pugh?
Yes.
Council Perry?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yep.
Mayor?
You don't need me. All right, so there goes your agenda. We are now down to comments and announcements. I'm going to start to my far left with Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, you have the floor for comments.
Okay, you can't legislate common sense. And there were some places that stayed open when we had the terrible snowstorm that should not have stayed open. And they just need to think about that for the safety of the citizens. I want to thank Randy Levine for serving as our municipal judge for so many years, and hope he enjoys his retirement, and thank you very much. And I want to thank all the employees for, we pass ordinances, and they're the ones that usually get the brunt of dissatisfied citizens sometimes, so I appreciate them, and we need to remember that. And I thank everybody that works on all the different boards and committees. Many of those boards and committees don't receive any compensation, and it's really important for the city to have those volunteers. So thanks a lot. Now we'll have a nice, safe weekend, and welcome Wesleyan students. Enjoy your semester.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Oh, they left?
Yeah. What's going on?
Well, I couldn't tell that. What can I say? They snuck out of here.
There's 4 left. Yeah.
Good thing I'm not teaching anymore. They'd be in trouble.
Mrs. Capari?
I just wanted to remind everybody, starting Monday, I'm starting the 4th of July committee meetings at 5:30 here at the council chambers, and I would love to have some volunteers come and be on my committee, make it bigger and better this year. And while I'm at it, I want to thank everybody that do volunteer to be in committees and work tireless, long hours, and sometimes don't get too much encouragement or recognition for it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Capari. Mr. Pugh?
First of all, thank you, Mayor, for the remembering Jack Rollins for the proclamation. We've all been involved. I think everybody that's on Facebook knows about Jack Rollins, and we've been sending prayers his way. Second of all, the big snowstorm, the clearing of the snow on Main Street on that Sunday and everything like that. I know of at least one restaurant that provided food and drink for the workers as they were doing their work out there in the snow. And I won't mention the restaurant, but they know who they are, and I'd like to publicly thank them for providing that to our workers as they did their work. Have a great weekend, and don't forget to mark the next council meeting down so you can come back and enjoy it as much as you did tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Mrs. Simon?
Looking ahead to summer, the Parks Committee is still wanting to have a splash pad for the children to play in. I was in contact with Don Edwards with the Splash Pads USA today. He is getting back to me, and we will hear more about this.
Thank you. Thank you for the work on that, and thank your group. I'm looking forward to that. Mrs. Alba?
Okay. I want to comment very briefly about the upcoming election, if I may. And I was told that I can do this because what I want to say is to all of you up here. It's been a pleasure and very rewarding for me to serve with each of you. The mayor and council have worked together as a team to serve our citizens and our city. The politicians in D.C. maybe could learn something from us. It's inappropriate to brag, so I'm just going to ask you to think back in time of some of the critical issues and hurdles that this council has cleared. To do this, it takes a cooperation of the council and their ability to compromise, their ability to search for what is the best for the future of our city and the residents. As for the mayor, that person has to do everything I just said, but more, because that person's the captain of our ship. I'm proud to serve with each of you, and I thank you for your service to our community and its people. We cannot leave out our city employees because they are the backbone of our city. And this is something we've all said since we've been serving together. All of us have worked diligently with our city boards and our departments. We've grown so much as a council. It's my belief for us to continue, or it's my belief that to continue moving Buckhannon into 2020, we need these people in office. And that's just what I wanted to say. And I won't be able to do any politicking, so, because I'm not running this time, but I'm very honored to have served with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elwell. Those very kind words. We appreciate that, and we enjoy working with you. You bring a lot to the table.
I do sometimes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I only got a couple things. I do want to pass our condolences on to Frank Angotti of the Harrison County Commission, who passed away this afternoon after a little bit of a bout with health issues. But I know the city of Buckhannon recognizes the work that Harrison County does, so we want to pass our condolences on up that way. Police Civil Service Commission have met. They have got 23 applicants that are candidates ready to begin that process next week. We've narrowed that down to 2 weeks to get our candidates for the replacement officer of Sergeant Stewart. Or what is he, Captain Lieutenant Stewart? Anyway, we have the newsletter coming out. That'll be in the next 2 months. Mr. Thomas, West Virginia Municipal League, pay increase. When I mentioned that to them at the West Virginia Municipal League, they kind of laughed at me because they say, aren't you the ones that say you don't want the state telling you how much or what you can make? So
But they do tell us.
they kind of laughed and said, well, if that's what you wanted to do, not many cities would be on board with that, but they would continue to look into that for you. And I do also want to tell you to pass on to my regrets, or I want to pass on congratulations to Mr. Levine for his retirement. He deserves it. He's been with the city for 20-odd years as a municipal judge. He's done a fine job. And it's sad I won't be able to see him on Fridays because he also brings a lot of information and interesting things to me and to our process. So having said that,
Mr. Paul Mackey passed away.
Yeah, yes, and let's not forget Mr. Mackey, longtime council member, fireman, police officer, and of course the condolences and prayers of the city go out to that family as well. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session per West Virginia Code -69-1-A.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion, second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you folks for hanging out. Have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.